Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. President Asif Ali Zardari, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Chief Minister of Balochistan, Mr. Sarfraz Bukti, all have condemned in the strongest possible terms the cowardly and the heinous terrorist attack perpetrated in Barkhan, Balochistan, where around 40 gunmen stopped several vehicles, offloaded the passengers, and they killed 7 people who were traveling to Punjab. President Asif Ali Zardari has said, let me quote, "Terrorists are enemies of peace and humanity. Terrorists who want to spoil the peace in Balochistan, the perpetrators would be brought to justice." Likewise, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had to say those inflicting damage to lives and properties of unarmed and innocent civilians will have to pay a heavy price. Sacrifices of innocent civilians will not go in vain. Chief Minister of Balochistan, Mr. Sarfraz Bukti, has said such attacks will not go unpunished and we will bring those responsible to justice. Regarding this particular heinous terrorist attack, Barkhan DC Waqar Khurshid Alam said, let me quote him, "Armed men offloaded 7 passengers from a coach after checking their identity cards and killed them. All 7 who were traveling in the coach belonged to Punjab and were on their way to Lahore." Unquote. So far, no group has claimed the responsibility of this particular heinous and cowardly terrorist attack. We know for a fact, a couple of days before, there was an interaction of Chief of Army Staff, General Syed Munir, with a group of students in Rawalpindi, in which he asked the Kharjiites, the Fitna al-Khawarij, the terrorists belonging to those groups, to surrender before the writ of the state, and then they can expect any sort of mercy, and also said that no one can impose their perverted version of religion on the country, and the armed forces are determined to eliminate this particular menace of terrorism from the country. Armed forces remain vigilant day in and day out. We know for a fact, rendering immense supreme sacrifices for this sacred motherland. We also know for a fact there was the 35th report of the United Nations Security Council Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team, and it had also specifically talked about the Balochistan Liberation Army, the banned group, also the Majid Brigade. Let me quote that particular excerpt from that particular report also. The Balochistan Liberation Army claimed that the Majid Brigade carried out several high casualty attacks in the reporting period. Majid Brigade included women in its ranks and operated across the southern region of Pakistan, including Avaran, Panjgod and Dalbandi. 2 member states reported that Majid Brigade maintained connections with TTP, ISIL-K, ETIM and TIP, including collaborating with the latter in the operational bases in Afghanistan. Also, this report talks about the status and the strength of banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan in Afghanistan. Also, we'll be taking that particular point of this particular 35th report of the UN Security Council Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team as well. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Major General Retired Zahid Mahmood, Senior Analyst. General Mahmood, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. It's always a great honor to have you on the show. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Agha Iqrar Haroon, Senior Analyst. Mr. Haroon, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. General Mahmood, let's talk about this particular incident. This is not an incident in isolation. Innocent civilians being butchered so ruthlessly, so brutally at the hands of the terrorists, being offloaded from buses, and they are being targeted by these terrorist groups. What sort of a mindset is at play who perpetrates such heinous and cowardly acts?
Jawad, thank you very much for the invite. It's really regrettable, and as a Pakistani today we stand with the families of these innocent Pakistanis who were brutally murdered, killed. In fact, every Pakistani such incident, I always take them an attack on every citizen of Pakistan. So it is the state which is under attack, to be very honest. And every citizen of Pakistan, as we were discussing before this program, being the center of gravity of Pakistan, is the target. So the inimical forces, their objective is that the people of Pakistan should lose hope in the state. They should lose confidence in the security apparatus of the state, because, and then they should have this feeling that these forces these huge militaries, these huge security forces, law enforcement forces, they are unable to protect us. Secondly, as we all know that we are being victimized by a state-sponsored terrorism and proxy war which is being waged against Pakistan, and that is coming from none other than our old neighbor India, and they're using the Afghan soils. Now they have available, their clients available in form of TTP, in form of BLA, BLF, Majid Brigade, and other, even now the social disruptive movements which are there in, in these parts of Pakistan, in Balochistan, and especially in Balochistan, they're also kind of, their leadership is also kind of linked with those. So that sponsor is very lucky to have so many clients without paying much, without using much economics, and they have adopted this hybrid approach because they have the opportunity of the plausible deniability of the incidents, So this is a complex situation. This is very unfortunate situation, but Jawad, in the program we will talk more about it, because we have some elements within our Pakistan also who are responsible for this. They're also collaborating, they're the abaters, they're the sporters, and they're also linked with the illegal spectrum which is there in these regions. They're also linked with the terrorism, because after now sanctioning, after stopping this aid to Afghan government, the $43–47 million every week which was coming from US, and then the US aid stoppage, this will enhance the trade of these illegal weapons which are there. I'm talking about the $7 billion weaponry which United States has left in Afghanistan. And now in Pakistan, people are questioning that was this bad withdrawal, or was this, is this deliberately this has been done to Pakistan to keep this region where the China is present, Pakistan is present, there's a collaboration, and China being the main competitor. Now people of Pakistan are asking questions. Even the think tanks in Pakistan who used to advocate our good friendship with America, not to lose America as a partner, they have also started thinking on these lines, and the policy makers in United States of America must learn from this. The thinkers who make the who advise the government, who advise who are the sane mind in the society, they are also now compelled to think about the American role in this region. So there's a lot of stuff which has to be taken care of, but again, whole of a nation approach is must. We'll talk about the ways and means how to tackle this menace, but unfortunate.
Whole of the nation approach is required for that, and in that particular regard, engaging with the country's youth from all across, and especially when we saw the recent interactions of the Chief of Army Staff with the youth from various parts of the country. In that particular regard, I'll take your view as well. Mr. Haroon, now I just want your understanding regarding as to what mindset is at play. Naturally, we might understand that if these terrorists really want to fight, and this sort of a statement was already made by one of the high-ranking officials also here in Pakistan, that why innocent people? If you've got the courage, if you've got really some mettle, then face the security forces, face the law enforcement agencies, and they've been successfully able to break your backbone earlier, and they are vigilant 24/7, and they're already dealing well with this particular surge. But what is this mindset to target innocent civilians?
Thank you so much, Tehami. There are three important points which I can take out of your discussion. Targeting innocent, vulnerable civilians. Why? You ask me a question. And then the mindset. And then the overall dynamics, which has been very, very briefly, but very to the focus, has already been explained by General Saab. He has given you the best possible spectrum of the issue. I'm coming to your point. Please don't forget, they are not only killing vulnerable, innocent civilians. There were 600 attacks on Pakistan armed forces according to UNSC report. And I will use a word which General Saab can understand. They are targeting the green soldiers. You know what are the green soldiers? This terminology was used in Afghan jihad to kill the very young boys of Soviet Union armed forces, and that it was the green soldiers. So that typical style is being, you can say, used against Pakistan Army now. They always try to target your captains, your young soldiers, your majors, your lieutenant colonels. Particularly, they now are targeting your youth. Youth is not only out of Pakistan Army, youth is everywhere. Out of Pakistan Army, they target youth through indoctrination and through narrative, false narrative building, and within the army, they physically target them and martyr them. So they are doing every kind of strategy they could think about that. And this all names you have mentioned, Majid Brigade, ISISK, ISISIS, TTP, for me they are just brand names. The franchise, different franchises. And the ownership of the franchise could be the what General Saab has already mentioned very, very clearly. You know, when America was living, absolutely I agree with General Saab, this is a very big question. Why did they leave 6 billion NATO grade weaponry? So here I would like to mention a message of Andropov. When Soviet Union was withdrawing from Afghanistan, he decided and announced only one person, this shoulder gun, and leave everything behind. In Politburo, Andropov was very strongly criticized why we left everything behind. And here in Pakistani newspapers, we were beating drums. Oh, look, they ran away, they left everything behind. The same narrative, the same mantra you had seen when America withdrew. Again are same, you can say, I don't want to use this stupid, but more on media, again said, look, America ran away from, no. Andropov said, we left everything there by design, because we know these toys will be used against Pakistan, the country who forced us to withdraw. The same word of Andropov had not been uttered by any American, but I can assure you this is the same thing in their mind.
Okay, so this American role.
This is what I feel. So this is my opinion.
There is also the view that has come forth from General Mahmood also regarding American role. People are now compelled to think that what American role basically is, whether this entire saga is being deliberately being unfolded towards Pakistan. We know for a fact Pakistan has been, General Mahmood has been the frontline ally in the war on terror. Pakistan paid in different forms when it comes to huge losses on economic front, as well as losing lives. Over 80,000 innocent lives were lost. Pakistani armed forces, law enforcement agencies giving those sacrifices. We also know for a fact when Afghan peace and reconciliation efforts were being made, this Doha peace accord, which was struck between the US and the Afghan Taliban, Pakistani authorities were desirous of a peaceful, stable and unified Afghanistan. That's why they facilitated those peace and reconciliation efforts also. Despite all Pakistan has been doing, being the front line ally in the war on terror, why would the US design such a deliberate plan towards Pakistan?
No, I don't say that this was planned, but now people are asking question that why US is not taking that responsibility, because as Iqrar Saab said, this weapon is a NATO coded weapons. So these weapons are US coded weapons. So whenever there is an incident of terrorist activity in Pakistan, and when the innocent Pakistanis are killed, and once you take out the Kharajites, these Fitna al-Khawarij guys, and they are carrying M16 or M4, so people will ask questions why these weapons are with them, you know. Though a lot of economy is also attached with them. Earlier they were AK-47 was being sold in Afghanistan for $250. Now they're selling it around $25,000 to $3,000, you know. But anyway, coming over to your question, you know, Doha Accord was it's a big accord. we only restrict ourselves to, you know, that the soil, Afghan soil will not be allowed to be used. But there are many other political and social points were also there in that accord. They were supposed to be having an all-inclusive government in Afghanistan. All right, but these Afghanistan Afghanis, you know, once there is a war, so they become the military commanders. Once there's the government is formed, they become the politicians. Once the religious thing is to exploit the innocent minds, they become the religious leaders. So they have many hats. They keep changing their hats. So their statescraft is, you know, always under question. This government has not come through a popular political process. So this is a byproduct of a war. So their policies, you know, the gun has always been a lead element in their political approach. But coming back to the United States of America, you know, probably there's a lot of politics was going on in, in United States also. And now their external policy, especially their war policy, that also impact the internal politics. And this has never happened in the past. Things in United States have changed. The new administration, the new people have come to the politics. With all my respect, maybe 15, 20 years back, Trump would never have been a candidate for this presidency, you know, the way he is dealing with the world. And he's pronouncedly saying that he's anti-war. But I, being a Pakistani, I being the victim of this war, I being a victim of a disarrayed country in my neighborhood, I am not interested in an anti-war Trump. I am more interested in pro-peace Trump. With the peace is, you know, you're making, I mean, Netanyahu is standing just beside you and you're saying that Gaza is a rebel. Modi is standing beside you and you're talking about the terrorism, you know, who are the international terrorists now. But what my point is that, look, this new administration has to address the follies of the past. Pakistan must put pressure through all the forums available to Americans. Because if they decide, then there are little chances of recovering these weapons. Already Trump has shown his, you know, he has spoken about taking back these weapons and getting back these weapons, and he is blaming ex-president, you know, Biden, that he failed to have inflict a comprehensive withdrawal from Afghanistan. So we need to put pressure on them. Why? Again, coming back to your point that why the people are doubting United States, that is because the main competitor is China. That is the declared competitor, because Americans say that China has the capacity and will to alter the world order. So once the Chinese interest is in this region, there's a lot of investment of China in Afghanistan also. So their economic BRI projects and everything is related to this Afghanistan. So people start doubting that this weapon has been also left here to disrupt the Chinese growth or Chinese progress. This is a part of a containment of the China policy, and India is their watchdog in the Indo-Pacific strategy. So Afghanistan, they have a wonderful ground, the pivot to disrupt, you know, hold the economic and political activity in this area. So that makes Americans doubtful.
Okay, so you talked of, you brought a very interesting term that you are up for not anti-war Trump, rather for pro-peace Trump. In his inaugural address, he said his biggest legacy is going to be that he wants to be remembered as a peacemaker and a unifier. So if that is his intention, how do you expect him to look into this particular aspect? Over 20 years war Americans had waged. It was Donald Trump's administration that has struck that that all-encompassing accord, Doha Accord, that you've already mentioned, which also asked for an all-inclusive government over there in Afghanistan. How do you expect from Trump administration 2.0 this time around?
Unfortunately, Afghanistan in this their policy is not figuring out very prominently as of now. Maybe later, because he's only 2 to 3 years, to be very honest. Practically, he has 2 to 3 years in which he can implement his plans. Then after the midterm, you know, the situation totally that changes. So he has a very short period of time. But unfortunately, Afghanistan is not figuring out, because if he will implement his policies in Afghanistan for peace, you know, then that watchdog again, the Indians. So they might not fall to his plan for them, you know. So the way he wants to use Indians, you know, against China in the Indo-Pacific, then there's military complex. Now they're focusing totally on China considering the economics. Now they have around $118 billion trade with India. You know, there is a trade deficit. So so India is figuring out that is also impacting and affecting the Afghan policy of Americans also. This has an indirect linkage with that. So there are linkages which because of those linkages, I am not foreseeing that this is figuring out very prominently. But again, Pakistan need to, you know, we should not be dependent on Americans. If we should not be dependent on their mood to solve a problem. We should create an environment through a offensive and very craftily, extremely very good diplomatic maneuver. You know, we have to collaborate with other partners in this region who are being affected. You know, attacks in Moscow were done by the ISIS, and they were in Afghanistan. China, what all is happening against China is now it will be emanating from Afghanistan. It is being emanated. Central Asia is under threat. So we need to create regional partnership. So we must put pressure on them, and we must create some stakes for Americans also. We have to make them understand, you know, there are no emotions. These are the interests. We have to make Americans understand, yet look, we are at ground zero. Now see 2062 resolution, Security Council resolution 2062, which was in 1999, and see this new resolution 2734 on the evaluation report which you were talking about their connections in Afghanistan. What situation has changed? There have been more than 40 resolutions in Security Council. So again, it's a vicious circle, and this region is again at the same point where it was in 1999. So the Americans, you know, so this can, another 9/11 can happen. And quickly, just one quick point. You know, international community, the dual faces, the duplicate, I mean, people talk about 9/11, people talk about 26/11, you know, people talk about the dates of the Bombay attack and all that, 7/11 or something like. Anybody talk about 16 December, which is APS? So they have become the international themes, and narrative building is done on those. And you talk about the Islamophobia and all that. Terrorism has nothing to do with the religion. Terrorism, we condemn them in all
why such a selective treatment? I'll come back to you.
General
Mahmood, I'll come back to you. Let me go once again to Mr. Haroon. American role and responsibility. In the recent past, we have seen the State Department giving out back and forth statements that it's for its unconditional, unequivocal support towards Pakistan when it comes to Pakistan dealing with the deadline of TTP, dealing with this menace of terrorism. So the kind of scenario that you already sketched by that very statement of Andropov when the weapons were left after the Soviets went away from here. So no such similar sort of a statement was made by any of the American officials at that particular time of the withdrawal of international troops from Afghanistan back in 2021. Why would they leave? Is it because of the China containment policy, or are there any other motives behind it? Because we also see there are two differing voices within the US also regarding the leftover of these weapons there in Afghanistan.
Recently, America has brokered a deal of India with Afghan Taliban. Look, why this deal has been brokered? This is my question.
US brokered a deal between Afghan Taliban and India.
Of course.
That is an interesting question, and that is a very interesting equation. That is exactly the next point that I was coming to, because going a little back in history, it was Afghan Taliban were fighting the invasion of the foreign forces that was led by the US. Under the Hamid Karzai's government and under Ashraf Ghani's government, it was the Taliban waging their war against the foreign occupation. There were clear evidences of the nexus between the Indian RAW and the intelligence agencies of Afghanistan, NDS, which was working under the Hamid Karzai's and Ashraf Ghani's government. So if the Afghan Taliban were waging war against them, how can they collaborate after taking over Kabul with their enemies now?
Tehami, you have asked me a very critical question, but I think I should answer very honestly. In Afghanistan, this is no concept who is ruling, whether they are foreigners or not. The issue is who is giving how much money to them. You know, I have a firm belief that the death of Ahmad Shah Massoud just 2 weeks before 9/11 was a very important event of the history which has never ever been registered, discussed, talked or even reported. So this is not an issue whether there is a government of foreigners or there is a government of any other religion. If they are giving money, everything is perfect. So this is the basically, all other things are basically rhetorics. Simple. You should understand first of all the mindset of the region. Secondly, they had been very successful by using terrorism as a leverage and as a leverage for negotiation in past when during their last tenure. So the same they did it against Central Asian states, particularly against Tajikistan, and the Tajik civil war was basically, I had been covering that particular time once, and I had been reporting from inside Afghanistan. So who were they? Then they tried to be Sinkyong and Toshgaram, and then they attacked this Uzbek president, the last one. Why? They wanted something from here, they wanted something from there, and now to Pakistan, why they have accelerated these attacks on Pakistan from US wide? Because they want us to recognize them first of all, allow them to keep doing smuggling of wheat, edible oil, sugar and the dollars. And you know what is basically the volume of that smuggling? According to rough estimation, 3,400 billion per year. And I am talking about dollars, not rupees. Just imagine, the stakes are so high. And that is why they don't want a stable border or a tightly looked after border. They want to keep engage our border security forces running here and there after terrorists. So they are very successful. But you must appreciate the Pakistan Army, and particularly the Chief of the Army Staff, who has ensured that smuggling must be zero. And that is why they are really crying. And they want to attack Pakistan every minute. So Pakistan should accept our point. Okay, at least you can start the smuggling of wheat and edible oils and edibles. This is the basically dynamics which I understand. I may be wrong. And very, very important point which I love to mention over here. According to my understanding, and according to my understanding with the region, this Doha Award or Doha Accord was actually nothing. In 2019, this was a secret deal of Americans with the Afghan Taliban. Okay, you will be our next. And this Karzai was taken into confidence. And he was given safe passage with all his family and all his money, all his cousins and all his even extended family.
Ashraf Ghani?
Yes. So this deal was done between the Americans and the Afghan Taliban in 2019, according to my understanding. This Doha Accord was simply, you can say, a face saving or something on surface, according to my understanding. So.
And that corroborates to the ground situation at that particular time, because 300,000 Afghan National Security Forces which were trained with all those resources for 2 decades by the international troops, and the Afghan Taliban reached to the gates of the presidential...
And they ran away.
And there was not even a tint of resistance at that particular point.
No, I'm telling you why. The question is, no, I'm coming to your question. You asked me in the end of your questioning. My dear, basically, America, while sitting in Afghanistan, could not harm China as much as he is not there and his some operator is there who is stopping CBAC, who is stopping BRI So this basically favored Americans. And now their broker deal, India and Afghan Taliban collaborating, joining hands, and even I mean Jara Sahab can mention, because I don't want to cross some limits, even their intelligence agencies are working together. So you can ask him this question.
Intelligence agencies
Of India and of course so-called the NDS under Afghan Taliban.
right. General Mahmood, now this particular nexus which you already talked about, this proxy warfare, because of that that particular hybrid approach, because of the plausibility of the denial of not being involved in that particular heinous act of terrorism towards Pakistan. Now, India and Afghan Taliban, what do Afghan Taliban get out of this particular deal? Keeping in view the kind of scenario which has been sketched, the kind of stakes
exactly,
which are involved through smuggling.
Very true. I think Iqrar Sahab has established that linkage extremely well. It is the terrorism economics which is attached to this terrorism. Now, what Afghanis are, Afghanis have become, unfortunately, we should not use this term Afghanis for all Afghanis, We must identify and pinpoint exactly, we are talking about the Afghan interim setup. Look, we being Pakistanis, our brothers are in Afghanistan, they're also suffering, they're suffering like us. We are the biggest victim of this war, that too being in our neighborhood. But Afghanis are also suffering. Their women are suffering, their children are suffering because of this illegitimate and cruel regime. So Afghan interim government is collaborating because they have themselves become a kind of a client, and that is primarily because of the economics which is attached. Okay, and then the future war, not only against Pakistan, but the future war against the main competitors and all countries, that will be waged through the proxies. Whatever is happening in Middle East, so there are no conventional forces are fighting each other. There are no conventional forces even left. And look, where is the Syrian army, or where is the Palestinian army, or whatever, right or wrong, I don't want to get into the details. So proxies are fighting there. The future use of proxies will be here, and through the indirect approach, through the 5th generation warfare. And these wars will not only be waged against Pakistan, but against other countries also in the region. Already few examples have been given. For these proxies will be used for the regime change. These proxies will be used in the economic war also, So these are the easy available tools. So they're available to them. So Afghanis are mostly interested in the economics which is there, and then with the Indians they are presenting themselves, and now within the even TTPs and within the Afghan forces and within this ANA, Afghan National Army, which was created, I don't know, I had an opportunity to speak to their ex-defense secretary, who was this commander CENTCOM, because I was posted. So I told him, we were having a social, just a relaxed discussion, and I told him, how can you create an army in few days? Armies take, I am a professional soldier, When I was in United Nations, I was deployed in Central Congo. So my team lead was an Indian colonel. He was my team lead in the United Nations. So I worked under him. I was very happily, we both contributed, because I was a professional soldier. So I know how the soldiering is done. And so, but you are creating an army and you're telling someone that you're a commander, you're a brigadier tonight, you're a lieutenant colonel, you're a soldier, and then they will know. It was highly unexpected that they will deliver for Afghanistan.
That is
and
exactly
I was
what
telling
happened.
them that you are adding 300,000 more loose grenades in the military system and in the region. So they will take up one night they will pick up their weapons and ask their com commander or the leader or the clan commander, for whom I should fight, because they are not drawing orders from the central authority, who has the authority to wage the war, the presidency. They will drawing orders from their own leaders. So lot of economics is attached. So India is available to them, and these forces will be available to them for a limited period. Once they will have their other design, Indians rejected the formation of this government. Indians spoke highly against this government in the Security Council when though a card was being signed. So they opposed. After 2-3 months, they said, okay, now these are the de facto commanders. So the the de facto's government, they have started doing their business. So de jure was altogether forgotten. So they're very smart operators. Whenever these are available, they will keep changing their position.
When it comes to their smartness, what could be those leverages Pakistan could actually use? Mr. Haroon has talked of that they want so badly their recognition as well, right? Could this particular thing be used as a bargaining chip with the Afghan Taliban? And if yes, and to what extent? And if yes, if it is done, what is the guarantee that they would be able to fulfill their promises after once they've been given this particular thing?
Guarantee, and Afghanistan and Afghanis, I'm sorry, we have been betrayed. They sat in the Haram Park, in the Khana Kaaba, in the house of Allah. They made a pact after the Russian withdrawal, and then once they went back. So there's a big question. We are keeping our fingers crossed. Guarantees from Afghan, until unless practically they prove, until unless they give chance to the community and they prove themselves that look, but Pakistan should work for an all-inclusive government in Afghanistan, a little stable government in Afghanistan, which should start working at least for the people of Afghanistan. Then we can understand, even if they start working for their own people, we will be able to draw some conclusions that look, they are serious about the business in Afghanistan. As of now, they're working for themselves, they're working for their own recognition, and they're working for their own economics. Till the time they start showing something, it is not possible. That's why I always maintain that in the kinetic application, we must create deterrence. And Pakistan has proved it. And the Pakistani military leadership has decided that they will pursue their targets in Pakistan and outside Pakistan, wherever they are. In diplomacy, we must create deterrence with a superior diplomacy. And in the government and politics, political function, again, deterrence. We should have a superior politics. We should engage the leadership. We should use the jirga system. We should use all the elders. So all those who have the leverages in people of Afghanistan. And the confidence of the people of Afghanistan must be gained. They must be conveyed very clearly. Look, we have no enmity with you. We are standing with you in the time of plight for you people.
Right, Mr. Haroon, your quick last comment regarding, we're left with very short time. So regarding this particular possibility of Pakistan recognizing the Afghan Taliban as the legitimate or the DJO government over there, as far as I remember, at that particular time when Kabul was being taken over by the Taliban, the authorities in Pakistan had a very categorical stance that will go with that particular line of the international community. We're not going to do it alone. Right? What about the region? After having understood the kind of facts that are right in front of our eyes that compel us to reconsider what American responsibility and role ought to be and what it is actually at the moment. What about the regional approach, taking into confidence all the regional countries, particularly when we talk about China, Russia, Iran, and other neighboring countries in Central Asian region also, and consider this particular bargaining chip of giving the recognition? Perhaps in that way, the Afghan Taliban could be impressed upon.
Very pertinent question. But I told you this recognition is just one of their demand. The major demand is the opening of the smuggling. Let me be very clear. Now you have mentioned a very important factor. But unfortunately, or actually fortunately, no one in Central Asia has ever trusted Afghan Taliban. No one. Even Tajikistan had a very, very strong observations when they came into power. Understand? Because Central Asian states, being of the Samarkandi states, they have read Amir Taimur since they are born. Amir Taimur's stories are part and parcel of their society. I request and suggest the nation of Pakistan and the people who are in power, they should also please read Amir Taimur if they want to understand this region, to whom you can trust and to whom you cannot. So this is what I can do, say in a minimum time. I want to mention a very important factor. When this operation Jackpot was completed, so Indira Gandhi has a meeting with the Manik Shah, and in their meeting, I don't remember the name of the defense minister, and she said, okay Manik, well done. No, the next target is Operation Surprise. He said, where? It was like in Afghanistan. I was like, how? Afghanistan, we don't have any bordering with Afghanistan. So it is none of my business. You talk to the intelligence agencies. I am a soldier, and if there is a link and I can fight, I will fight. But in Afghanistan, there is no linkage. So in 73, India was very clear, Operation Surprise. This was decided, and you can listen to the Manik Shah interview. He has mentioned this factor.
Right. Mr. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon, senior analyst, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Major General, retired Zahid Mahmood, senior analyst. General Mahmood, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.